Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kayan Gotkins. I am the principal of Smart Start Preschool and Nursery.
Everyone, I am Shamara Vidal and I am Amy Richards' teacher at the Smart Start Preschool and Nursery.
I am Laura Ramsey, the school counselor, and I am here to advocate for Amy and her family and give them the support that they need during this challenging situation.
Good day, my name is Miss Lily Chan and I am Smart Start Preschool and Nursery Speech Therapist Teacher.
My name is Dr. Cindy Hope Lawrence and I am a speech pathologist.
My name is Sarita Akpa, one of the teachers at the Smart Start Preschool and Nursery, and I'm one of the teachers who assist Amy Richards.
When a child does not acquire the expected developmental skills of children in their age group, this is referred to as a developmental delay. These delays could be seen in a child's cognitive, language and speech, social or motor skills. Expressive language disorder is a developmental delay that is common but is often confused with other forms of developmental delays. Children with this disorder usually have difficulty expressing themselves through speech, writing, or using gestures. Observational tools utilizing various types of speech and language assessment, as well as checklists, can be used to identify any speech and language difficulties displayed by children from an early age in order to avoid any long-term effects or challenges. Strategies which can be used to support the development of any delays observed would involve the parents engaging their children in child-directed and conversational speech exercises, and also by narrating the day's events. Additionally, for professional support, the Morris Center, Trinidad and Tobago is recommended for diagnosis and treatment, which would further aid in the speech development of the child.
Dear Mr. and Mrs. Richards, it was brought to my attention that your daughter, Amy Richards, has been struggling with language and speech development. Her teachers underwent various assessments to derive at this conclusion. Therefore, we are requesting to meet with you on Monday, the 29th of March, 2020 at 9 a.m. to discuss our findings and to make recommendations to seek diagnosis and treatment for such developmental issues. For further information, please call the school at the number above. Thank you for your cooperation. With kindest regards from your dear principal, Kayan Gotkins.
This is Principal Gotkins and she will be the host of today's meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Richards. I am Kayan Gotkins, the principal. It is a pleasure to have you here with us this morning. Please meet Miss Ramatar, our school counselor. She will also join us in the meeting.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Richards. I am Laura Ramsey, the school counselor, and I've been asked to sit in on your discussions by the school principal. I am here to support you and grant you reassurance at the end of your discussions.
So, Mr. Richards, as Amy's teacher, I observed a difference in her language and speech during her time with me at school, and even when she communicates with her peers. Therefore, I decided to assess the situation. Assessment tools used to conclude my findings. So we have the first one that I'm going to give to you, which is the Speech Language Pragmatic Observation Form. Let's have a look at that one. The next one for you, which is the Speech Language Assessment Checklist. The third one is the Story Narrative Sequencing Assessment Form. And I'll explain each one to you. The Speech Language Pragmatic Observation Form is to gather information on the way in which Amy uses language within social situations. For example, the way she greets informs people about things, requests, and using facial expressions and gestures, Admin 2016. And this is the form right here. According to Falcom 2018, children must be able to use language to communicate effectively by drawing inferences and linguistic utterance. Language areas to be targeted during clinical assessment. This way, when we are able to identify speech and language difficulties such as stuttering, impaired articulation, language impairment, voice impairment at an early age will be of great benefit for Amy and for you, her parents. Ireland and Conrad 2016. This case could affect a child's educational performance. So, the reasons for using the story retell narrative sequencing assessment is to identify narrative and sequencing difficulties in her. According to Journal et al. 2013, retelling and sequencing is one of the most important ways to build communication and academic skills. Using this assessment is an effective way to gather developmental, functional, and academic information on Amy's strengths and weaknesses. These assessments will assist in establishing a diagnosis and determine the appropriate communication intervention goals for Amy's speech and language deficit. Please note that the assessment tools should be used to determine whether Amy needs clinical or diagnostic treatment. Ireland and Conrad, 2016. Therefore, the tools were used by me along with other teachers once a week, during play, at story time, and even during conversations. Especially when we noticed that the communication flow was disrupted and the normal flow of receptive and expressive aspect of speech was compromised. For instance, Kaiser suggests that the story retell narrative sequencing assessment is used to guide, recall, and discuss after reading, especially after noticeably delayed issues in Amy.
Our school have been conducting observation on our children to observe their developmental milestones. And we have noticed that Amy may have expressive language disorder. And this is from our observation. Amy is unable to form a sentence with more than 2 words. For example, Amy would say "mummy car" when she means that's mommy's car. She would use fewer words and sentences than children from the same age group. She would use limited and more basic vocabularies. Also at storytime, Amy has problems with retelling a story or relaying information in an organized way. We have noticed that she makes grammatical errors using poor or incomplete sentences. For example, Amy would say "he go to work" instead of saying "he is going to work." Ms. and Mrs. Richards, from my experience and what I observe, I would like to recommend 2 benefits that may help Amy. To have a proper evaluation done by a speech pathologist, and 2, therapy with a speech pathologist. Now, I would like to give you a little insight about expressive language disorder and also language disorder itself. So, according to NIDCD 2020, language and speech skills develop during the first 3 years of a child's life. This ability is ideally developed in a world rich in sound, vision, and exposure to other people's voice and vocabulary. Children at this age would mostly be able to start to comprehend language, then tend to be crucial stages of language learning and speech. It would be harder to understand if these crucial times pass without language exposure. The first sign of language and speech development occurs and when an infant learns when they cry, it brings food, comfort, and companionship. Also recognizing important sounds in their environment. For example, their mother's voice. Children with expressive language disorders have difficulties expressing themselves through talking or writing. It is also difficult for them to combine words to form accurate phrases and sentences.
Children with language delays may exhibit problems in their behavior, such as aggression, as suggested by Gardner, Bragner, Pruden, and Nicholas Lopez. Hence, it is important to address language difficulties in children as soon as possible. Research has shown that the quality of parent-child interactions has a direct effect on the child's development. Furthermore, parents who were shown to engage their children in child-directed and conversational speech exercises greatly enhance their child's language development. Therefore, Mr. and Mrs. Richards, you can support Amy's development by learning how to engage in child-centered interactions and different home activities that would have a positive impact on how Amy receives and expresses language. One way that this could be done, according to McLaughlin, is to use toys and children books to engage in communication. As you read the books with Amy, she would be able to look at the pictures as you describe the pictures to her and follow as you read. When Amy hears and associates the label with the picture, she would be able to imitate and use these words. Another way that you can support the development of Amy's language skills is by narrating the day's events, as suggested by Pepper, Witzner, and Center. Basically, you list out everything that you're going to do as if you were on a reality TV show. For instance, while you're doing the actions, you can say to Amy, to brush our teeth, we use a toothbrush, and we put toothpaste on the toothbrush, and we begin to brush our front teeth. You would use this format of speaking throughout the day as you interact with Amy, talking to Amy about what you're doing as you do it. You could also label the items in your cupboard and explain what you're going to be using those for as you cook and clean. This way, Amy would be able to experience what she's hearing verbally and make real-life associations with certain phrases and ultimately be able to use those phrases appropriately.
Any delay in development is by dealing with the problem as early as possible. By not doing so, it will only worsen the condition and could result in several challenges which can carry on later in life. Two long-term challenges that can be faced if the delay is not addressed are difficulty expressing higher level language. Higher level language skills refer to those skills that go beyond basic vocabulary, word form, and grammar skills. They are also critical to academic and social success. These set of skills involve a creation of an advanced vocabulary, making the connections between words, as well as having the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes in order to view their standpoint in various situations. The second challenge could be negatively impacting social skills. This delay, if prolonged, can cause difficulties in verbal exchanges, understanding an individual's tone or body expressions, as well as having difficulty asking questions, as well as hindering their ability to inform. This delay can also result in feelings of shame in the individual, which could discourage them from being vocal in various situations, as well as feeling a need to not participate in spaces where they would be put on the spot for speaking, such as class participation and public speaking.
Mr. Richards, based on my research and experience with similar cases, Amy's difficulty has the potential to negatively impact several areas of her development and functioning. But don't you worry, with support, you and Amy will be able to manage these challenges and work towards improvement. I recommend Amy to the Morris Center Trinidad and Tobago for diagnosis and treatment. The Morris Center Trinidad and Tobago is the right fit for your family for numerous reasons. Firstly, this organization performs free consultation, which is a favorable trait during the current economic decline. Secondly, the Morris Center boasts of a success rate and ability to work with young children, so I am confident that you will receive positive results. Lastly, and most impressive, is its rare transdisciplinary feature. A transdisciplinary approach recognizes the areas of child development as inseparable. So professionals will work across disciplines to facilitate support for Amy over several developmental domains. The transdisciplinary team at the Morris Center addresses several issues from literacy to behavioral and even social deficits that are independent or byproducts of disorders. Ultimately, the goal is to improve Amy's weaknesses and increase her life chances and future success.
Mr. Richards, to conclude our meeting, Amy was assessed for a language and speech delay because Teacher Vidal noticed she was having difficulty using words correctly and unable to form a sentence with more than two words, unusual for children her age. Firstly, she used the speech language pragmatic observation form to determine pragmatic reasoning in pre-linguistic communication and word learning. Secondly, speed and language assessment checklists to ascertain potential speech and or language areas to be targeted during clinical assessment. Lastly, story and retelling narrative sequencing assessment is to identify narrative and sequencing difficulty. After the assessments, along with recommendations to seek diagnosis and treatment at the Morris Center, Trinidad and Tobago. Such language and speech issues as Amy's typically resembles expressive language disorder. A child with expressive language disorder is unable to communicate thoughts, needs, or wants at the same level or with the same complexity as his or her peers. Therefore, one strategy you can employ is to read books, which encourages communication. This delay in development is not addressed as soon as possible. She will develop long-term challenges such as difficulty expressing higher level language and or negatively impacting social skills. Mr. Richards, you and Mrs. Richards will not have to go through this alone. All language disorder can be frustrating for parents and the child. Your role is critical, and we are all here for your family at Smart Preschool. Early intervention is the key to having Amy on a successful path.